Thank you so much for coming to see my talk. I have to say, this is a total first for me to talk not about tech at a technical conference. So I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing here? But this is something I really gotten into over the last year or so, and I just had to talk about it. I want to start in 2011, because in May 2011, that's when I arrived in the UK. It's a bit of a similar story as the previous one, really. I was doing a PhD in Amsterdam. I was forced to do a postdoc, and I went to Exeter. That's basically what happened. So I arrived. I didn't have somewhere to live. I didn't have a bank account. I had no idea what I was doing. But I was there in my first meeting at the university, not having English as my first language. And everyone was just talking like insanely fast. And I realized, oh, these people are from Oxford. They're very clever. They talk the way they do and all that kind of things. And I was like, oh, I can't get a word in here. And they just kind of were building on top of each other, chasing ideas around. I was Dutch. People don't talk like that. We talk direct. We have short meetings. Everything goes really, really fast. And also they talked about the stuff that I wasn't there to do. So my postdoc was all about the land surface and how does that interact with the climate. They were talking about the atmosphere. I didn't know anything about that. So I just sat there and I was like, whoa, what is going on? I think I could feel there was a lot of unwritten rules, but I really did not know yet what they were. And all I thought was, yeah, they are. Oh, I have to keep up, I have to sound super clever. I'm definitely not allowed to ask any questions because they will find out I don't know anything. That's basically how it started for me in 2013. 2024, completely different story. I was laid off because my whole team got laid off as a geospatial data science person, and I was just kind of in need for a job. And I was interviewing for a senior role in a field I knew absolutely nothing about. And I think I was a completely different person then. I knew the rules, I knew how to speak. I know how fast everyone spoke, so I did. I could just on the spot come up with ideas. And I realized this later, really pretend that I was really, really, really excited in the subject, even though I clearly was not. So my intuition really wasn't very loud anymore because I think it was literally screaming at me, you're not interested in this. But at the same time, oh, I need a job, this is important. You need this. So I went with it. I took the job and I quit after a few months because I was like, wow, this is really, really terrible. I can't do this. It's not for me. It was a great team, great job, but not for me. So all the signals were there. In the interview, straight away when I was working there, it just didn't feel right, but I just completely was able to ignore it. So this is what I want to talk about, this big gap between these 13 years. What happened there and how do you stop that from happening, really? In 2024, I just really knew. I learned the rules over these 13 years, so these rules that nobody writes down. I'll come back to that in a second. And they completely control the way I talk, the way I behaved. It's not all bad, definitely not, because I learned a lot of things like public speaking, which I love doing now. And I was just pretending that I was interested in a subject. And I didn't even know about that subject 15 minutes earlier. And the thing was, in the last year, 2 years ago now almost, it didn't even feel like rules to me. That's just who I am. I'd learned the rules, and honestly, I couldn't see them anymore. And I just thought, this is just how it is. This is how the world works. I just have to get through with that. And honestly, I think every team, everybody has this throughout his career. You kind of absorb everything around you, and you start following these rules. And this is really interesting, because my slides are going well. I just see two, so I was a bit confused myself. So what I want to do in this talk, I want to give you a way to keep seeing these rules around you, even if you've learned them, even if you've been there by 2 years, 5 years, 10 years within a team, and read them. Find a way how to start shifting them if you don't like them, if you realize, oh, something's off. At the moment, I'm a chief AI architect at a space and aerospace engineering consultancy, which is very, and I could give myself the title, so I was like, I'm getting that one because it's cool. And I also do another thing. I also work with teams on the mindset side, and both of these are really recent, and both of these are my own companies, and that's all big changes. And how this really happens is because after I quit, I just thought, well, this really didn't work. I need to figure out why. So I spent really months trying to figure it out, studying these rules, starting to learn about the mindset, how the team works, because I realized I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't know what kind of job I want. I don't know. I'm using other people's rules and I don't recognize my own anymore. So it did start to help me see, oh, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to be, and I realized I want to just do everything, basically. I can't just only sit behind a computer and write Python every day. I also want to talk to teams. I also want to maybe be a coach. I don't know that bit yet, still figuring it out. So, and that's kind of what brought this talk about, because I just want to talk about all that. So it's about what I learned and how it shows up in pretty much every team. And you really you cannot change a rule you cannot see. So that's where I want to start. So how do you see all these rules that the team that you work in become visible again? So most teams have this. You have a handbook. You might even have a whole committee deciding what the team rules are and the way you behave and how you work together. So it's all written down in a wiki, a Notion page, or just in a README. It has the team values, or the engineering principles, code review processes, all these kinds of written down the rules. But really, in reality, there's lots of unwritten rules that kind of you learn after you've joined bit by bit. So, and every team I've been part of, you might have has these rules. So you might have learned them in week 3 by getting them a little bit wrong. So you do something or ask questions in a certain way, and it really, you just can feel the pushback. So, okay, you're not doing that anymore. That was not part of this set of rules that this team works in. It's really visible in what kind of works get celebrated, what gets ignored is a big one there, and also what kind of questions people ask. And so you have the wiki. It really says what the team says it is, but it isn't. It's really that other set of rules that shows you what the team is. And I've given it a name. It's basically the team culture, and I like using the word paradigm. Just because of the books I've been reading, it comes in there all the time, so that's where I go for. And it's just the habits of a group of habits in a group, in a team, that are held in place by repetition. So the small things that get repeated and repeated over again, that's what sticks in the end. And I'll come back to this quite a few times. And I think this set of rules, this set of habits, is what keeps the team behavior going. And nobody has to think about it. Nobody enforces it. It just kind of enforces itself. When you're new, you just pick it up because you want to fit in. That's kind of what you do when you start a new job. You desperately want to fit in and try to pick up the rules. And when you're there for a long time, you don't even notice it anymore, like I had. That's just the way it is. And also, your results, they're really, really related to this habit, this group of habits. All coming back to that in a second. I told you, I've been doing a lot of reading on mindset and whatnot, so there might be slipping in here and there certain things. This is the big one for me. And it's also one you could take for yourself. It doesn't even have to be about a team. So underneath all your habits, or the team's habit, there is something else. Because a team will have a picture of itself. Because they will say, oh, we're the ones who really understand the science. Oh, no, we are the ones that really work so fast and we break things and we're just awesome and cool. Or, oh no, we're always firefighting, we just never have time, we're just continuously rescuing things. Or actually, we are really the team the rest of the company always comes to if things go wrong. Or another one, a bit of an opposite one. It's like, yeah, we don't do that here, that's not what we do. So all these kind of little phrases that just kind of roll around, but been mentioned here and there, that's the picture of a self-image. And that self-image really sets the ceiling of what you can do. Because if you think of yourself or of your team always firefighting, you're not going to suddenly do something else. Because that's what you are, so you keep doing it even there's no fires. And if you are thinking of yourselves as responsible adults, you'll always be the responsible adult. Even if you haven't said that out loud, you're not going to then suddenly change that if the situation really needed some risk. So when anyone on the team then starts behaving in a way that does not fit that picture, for instance, if my 2011 me would just walk into a room with a Dutch kind of way of doing things and just ask, oh, how does this work? I don't get this, why that? It becomes pretty obvious, oh, that's not how we do these things, we need to do this in a different way. And it doesn't make any space for not fitting in. This. And what doesn't? And that pushing back, oh, I asked the question, it kind of feels weird now. It's all, and I think this is an important one, it's actually an underlying fear of not fitting in, of being fired, of not getting enough work, there's just a million fears you can think about here. And I think the big one, when you're working with a lot of people together, is the fear of criticism. So being afraid of being seen badly. Oh, you might be afraid of not being part of the team. Oh, actually, I'm never going with lunch. Anyone else to lunch? Oh, that might be wrong there. So that's really, all these unwritten rules are kind of an armor against that fears. So it kind of keeps everybody aligned and everybody happy and makes the fear feel like it's gone away a little bit. And just as all these habits, that when you just start, you kind of start absorbing them, the fears come along with this, the fears that everybody else in the team has, the way the team sits within the rest of the company that's always been talked about, that kind of also comes around like that. And it's everywhere. And it's just like watching the Daily Mail and all the other negativity in the news. It just kind of, not even consciously, just constantly there, the way everyone behaves, so you start absorbing it. And here's one, and an example of a rule you might recognize, especially when you're in a larger organization, or have been. There is a lot of meetings. I've been in jobs where you just don't have to actually do anything. You could just sit in meetings 5 days a week. And you go. If you're invited, you go. That's the rule. And who knows where that comes from? And I know it's not true everywhere. It's a pretty generalization, obviously. It's not written. It's not a policy anywhere, probably. Manager doesn't enforce it. Nobody wrote it down. And pretty much everybody follows it anyway. Because if you don't go, you don't want to send out these signals that you don't care, or that you're not engaged, or you're not in the loop, and all these things. So you just go, even when you don't have to be there. And, well, this is an obvious one. It could have been an email in many cases. Or what about these meetings? Just 90 minutes. Let's go and talk about all the stuff we might want to do in the future one day, and we actually have no money for it, but let's talk about it anyway for 90 minutes. That kind of meetings. You can fill weeks with that. And that's the result, is this paradigm, so it's everywhere. So the paradigm that comes out of this, everybody's busy, and they really are, because their calendars are full, they have to prepare for all these meetings, they still have to think about it, and they say, I really have no time. And it's true, they mean it. But there's this rule underneath that everybody just follows. You go because, well, you go, basically. And this can just eat up hours and hours. And most of these talks about team culture and all that, they're all for managers. They will talk about how do you change your team, how do you get everyone engaged, make more positive. But honestly, these kind of rules, they're not enforced by the manager. They're made by the team itself over time, and they might have even been started by people who aren't even there anymore, but kind of just kept going. So you can also undo them in thousands and thousands of small repetitions, because that's how they were created, just small repetitions over time. And this is kind of what I talk about, the rest of the talk. So how do you figure out what all these rules, these paradigms in your team are? So before you join or after you just joined, and also how do you do it when you've been there a while? And then how do you shift all these things? The things you're like, doesn't feel right, my intuition might be saying me something else. How do you change it? I just will talk about 3 small moves you can just start with next week. And lastly, I'm kind of going to try to figure out how to talk about this around all the changes that are happening around AI in all teams, because that's a massive paradigm shift that everyone's going through, and really now's the time to decide how you want to do it. And I'll go through 5 signals, and they're all kind of, on their own they tell you nothing, but all together they are showing you a little pattern of how your team is working. If it's a negative culture around you, or it's just great, everything's good, and then just keep going with what you're doing. Because honestly, this is not all negative, and of course I'm talking about negative examples because then you will remember them better, or you might just recognize some and think, I am going to change that. And it's not about seeing the patterns, it is about seeing the patterns, sorry. It's all about the skill is in naming them and then talking about them. Very, very big one, of course. How is failure handled? Model has been drifting in production, someone catches it, and they open an incident, a ticket in incidents. So now you watch what's happening. How does this get handled? Who goes first? Who speaks first? What's the language? Are the people really curious, or they're like very quiet suddenly? Nobody actually says anything in Slack. So the post-mortem, is it like a confession? It's like, oh, someone gets blamed who wasn't in the room? Or is it like, yeah, this is exactly how we're doing it? So there's 2 ways to respond, or many ways to respond these kind of things. And I can't, but the way it's done, you can kind of see, this is working well. Why do people get blamed? So you can have responsible adults, they will just actually treat the bug as a moral failing sometimes, I think. It's like, oh my God, we did this all wrong, what's happening? But if you're just like scientists and just being really technical about it, yeah, it's just data, we're going to change it. I think that's actually a better way. There's nothing emotional about an incident. So same thing, 2 different ways to react. The incident had been exactly the same, but you see the difference in this way of response, that the team really has a different image of itself between the 2 ways that they think about it and respond. Another one. This is kind of a game I like playing, because I can almost predict in certain meetings who's going to say the first things, and then also who's going to talk the longest, and all these kind of things. So there's always someone first. Sometimes it's because they have a strong idea. But really often it's not. I just want to be the person being heard. And I know I'm going to say a few things out loud here that not everybody always says out loud. So you kind of want to watch who talks first. Does that make sense? And then also who doesn't speak, or who waits until after a certain person has voiced their opinion, and then they will also have that opinion, possibly. And also there's a lot of people, actually I think I've been one of these for a long time, who doesn't say a word in every meeting, but afterwards they're like starting to message everyone else, like, oh, actually what I think is this. So maybe I shouldn't have done that, but it's the way I did it for a long, long time. So this order of who speaks and who's the loudest, that really shows you the hierarchy within the team. And it's again a story of a team telling itself. Who counts? And you can loosen this. Just what happens, see what happens if someone who never speaks suddenly changes. Somebody speaks second. And actually probably nothing bad happens and the order doesn't change, but it changes the whole dynamic in the team. Other people are like, oh, yeah, I can do that, no problem at all. Why wait? Another one. This is quite an important one I never really thought about. It's always what gets celebrated in a team versus just ignored. So let's say someone stays up till 3 a.m. to fix a big fire, someone's website crashed, whatever. Next morning, all these praises from everybody, every screenshot, people talking about for weeks or sometimes years of this amazing event that happened and it got all fixed. And at the same time, the person who actually just prevented the same kind of bug, the same kind of crash 6 months ago by just actually writing the code properly, never gets talked about. Same team, same similar work, and one of them gets celebrated, the other doesn't register. So in this case, you just have to be loud, and then you get promoted, you get there. But so we celebrate the firefighters. We don't celebrate the people who just prevent the fire. And again, you think, that it's just an event, nothing special. Actually, team just learned something here. They've been taught something. Nothing really major, no policy change. They just had a reinforcement that what kind of things actually count in this team. So, and then, as you will see over time, this same pattern will repeat and repeat for 3 years or longer, and that really then just shapes the culture of the way everybody works. So, celebration is actually a teaching tool, and nothing about whether what the team thinks of it that way or not. It is, because it just reinforces again through the little repetitions. Another one, I like this one because I've had a few examples of this, especially the stories that get repeated all the time. Because everyone knows this. If you're working at a startup, for instance, and then at another dinner, the founder will tell the whole story about all the way this company started and all that for the 15th time, or even more. That just happens over and over. Or the weekend, somebody pulled a massive proposal together and they won a big contract. Or also the bid that they lost against someone else who have no idea who they were. So you kind of, these stories that you repeat over and over again, and you can come up with many more examples here, of course. You kind of tell yourself who you are, because that's the thing, that's the stuff that sticks. They really become the picture of, oh, we do it like this, and this is how we got founded. And in this case, they're just all about heroic last-minute proposal wins. And then, guess what? This team will keep doing that. And another team, oh, we're not like that team. We're not like that slow team, that messy team, blah, blah, blah. It's a negative way of looking at yourself. You're actually not even seeing who you are, but just comparing yourself continuously. And that's also really powerful. So have a look and just watch what gets repeated over and over, and which ones actually, what is also important, what kind of events, stories just drop out and nobody ever talks about. That's interesting too, because that obviously didn't fit the picture that the team had initially, because, oh, that doesn't fit, so we're not talking about that anymore. The fifth one, and this could be a bit of a tough one. I did a practice earlier this week with a few colleagues, and they were like, that's a painful one, the unsayable ones. This is the topic everyone deflects from, the flinch, the subject change. So there's always something in any team that you just don't talk about for some reason. It could just be simple as salary. It could be, well, this technical bet that we did a few years ago was really a mistake, but now we have committed, so we're just never ever gonna talk about that ever again. And it could be also a person. So there might be someone in the team whose work everybody criticizes and everyone has opinions about, but they will never do it in front of his or her face. So how do you find these things? Because obviously there's the obvious ones, but there's also like the ones that are really a little bit more painful and sensitive. You do see them by watching what gets deflected. So if someone asks, especially maybe a new person, asks questions, like the whole room's going quiet now. It's like just an innocent question. Why do we use this kind of system or whatever? Nobody stop. Subject changes, you even might see an eye roll here and there. So that's one of these 5 unsayable things in the team. So there's just 5 things, 5 ways of looking at how your team is organized, how you work together, and where the boundaries of your team are, how it works. Because everything outside the boundaries just doesn't fit for some reason. And I'll come back to the unsayable, because then naming what is unsayable is really one of the moves I want to talk about. So maybe just have a look in your next meeting, see if you recognize any of these things, or you probably might have recognized a few already. But what if you don't have a few weeks, or you haven't been hired yet? You actually want to know, is this team a good fit for me? And I just read this and I thought, oh, actually, it goes both ways. You could also ask this to a new person who might join your team. That's simple. They're not the most exciting questions. Anyone could have come up with these ones, really. So tell me about a recent failure on the team and how it was handled. Or who thrives here? Who struggles? Or how does a team handle disagreement, especially about technical direction? And honestly, I don't think the content of these answers matters a lot less than how people answer it. So really, what's the body language? How does it go along? And so that's just an example. Answer to the first question. So we had a model, degrade last month. We did a post-mortem. We found the root cause, and the schema was just wrong, basically. We have added a check, and now we're rotating who runs the post-mortem. So it's not always the same person. That's a team. There's just no emotion in there. Team done the work. They remember what happened. They know it changed. They mentioned changing the leader. It's kind of all sounds like normal the way they work. Just this one is a bit different. So it starts basically with the second question. Honestly, the ownership of the model has been a bit unclear. And the previous person left, handover wasn't great. So we tightened it all up, and now that we have a clear owner. Kind of sounds reasonable, but in the background it's like, yeah, this really didn't go well. This was chaos, and they have no documentation, for instance. All this kind of stuff doesn't sound right. So this could, in an interview, these are quite extreme differences, obviously. You can really notice, like, that's a bit weird. Why did I do it like that? And yes, this kind of clarity, it changes over time. As I said before, in 2011, I was still very Dutch, let's call it that. I worked the way I behaved, what I did, and then all the way down to 2024. This is not 2 years, but you get the idea. The thing that happened to me between then and now, that's what this kind of is about. In your first week, everything's strange. Even the lunch ritual. Where do people go for lunch? And oh, now I have to go and eat that kind of food. That happened to me a few times. The way somebody says, oh, there's no blockers. Or, well, there clearly are, but nobody just mentions them in stand-up. You kind of pick that up in the beginning. But by month 3, you do the same. You also say no blockers, because, well, everyone always says no blockers, so you have no blockers either. And in 6 months, you might just even enforce it on the next hire. And 2 years, or even longer, you don't even see them anymore. It just all looks how things are. I think that's an acclimatization trap. So when you really see the team and how it behaves, it's really in the beginning, maybe even only the first 2 months, 3 months. And what people do, I think everyone does that. What you do in the beginning, you try to fit in, and I think you shouldn't. You should try to stay yourself, figure out how you as yourself fit in instead. Don't try to change yourself. I've done that. And there's 6 tools for reading a team, and you have 6 mental faculties basically, and you might as well use them to read a team. And we really default to one, especially in the area we're in. So the one we default to, really the top reason. Good, we're really good at that, analyzing data, comparing all sorts of things, looking for patterns. That's basically the thing you've been rewarded for since school, since forever. So that tool, that's really strong. Everyone knows, can do this very well. But it's also a slow one. It operates only on data you can already articulate to yourself. The other 5, they're really fast. So you have memory, so recognizing patterns you have seen before. That's something we use as well, of course. Imagination, that might just be picturing a team you cannot see yet, as an instant. The will, or willpower, holding one picture and ignoring the noise. To be honest, you have to be good at that sometimes. I'm not very good. I'm kind of a chaotic person. It takes me sometimes until 4 p.m. to finally get started. So my willpower isn't that great always. So your perception is your point of view. You can consciously shift, and that's exactly what happens when you join a new team. The way you look at things might just completely change. And then intuition. And that is really the important one. But that's the stuff you have actually not really words for, but you know it's wrong, or you know it's right, or you just get a feeling. So in the stuff, like if in a new job, first week, it's like, why is this channel about all these designs and review always so quiet? You have no idea, but you can tell that's just weird, things like that. And intuition is the one that I want you to keep big and not forget, and listen to it, because it's really the most relevant one to keep with yourself, to read the team, and also to figure out what all these unwritten rules are because they're in your body almost before you can find the words for it. It's really, when I was in that interview, I could just feel it. It's like, oh man, I can feel it in here, but I ignored it. Just keep going. And it's the one that you lose the easiest and the quickest, also because it's really soft and not very loud like all the other ones. So honestly, in 2024, I ignored it. I was just this data person doing the data things. I don't care what subjects, I can do it all. And really, I realized that's wrong, it wasn't true. And now I realized, oh man, I love doing satellite stuff, that is cool. So it's kind of your intuition just kind of guides you towards the right subject sometimes. Something you could do, especially in the beginning, just keep a weird list of all the stuff you notice in a team where you're like intuitively reacting to or noticing. Every day, write down one thing that you think is kind of weird or surprising, or just quick note, that's it. And then keep that list. So this is just a few examples. We never disagree. It's like, oh, that's kind of strange. Everyone says no blockers. When there clearly is blockers, we're still not saying that. And why does the data team never go to the engineering all hands? Kind of weird, maybe? And why is stand-up 22 minutes? Things like that. I noticed that in my team, that was weird. And why are there no documentation? It's even weird. And why do people always comment about things and then they stop doing that? Just all sorts, just a few examples. There's a million more, of course. So do this, and then in 8 weeks, everything you'll notice, it just looks normal. It's just, oh yeah, that's how it works here. And also, if you've been at a company very, very long, you could use I guess you could use the opinions and the views of the people who just hired, just by noticing the questions you get asked. And then also realizing the way you answer is like, oh, actually, yeah, Just think about the way you answer to things that other people might find a bit strange, the way people communicate, for instance. So that's kind of, just pay a lot of attention, follow your intuition, is how to read the rules. So while you're interviewing, while you just joined for a long time. And you can change everything. And yet that is a really slow, gentle process. These are not really big gestures. You're not just gonna, as a big manager or owner of a company, write a new statement, this is how we're gonna do it now. It's never gonna work. Everyone's just gonna keep going the way they are. So it's all about small, repeated and consistent acts. And definitely not a slogan or a big speech or something like that of the CEO. And you do this by shifting it through your actions all the time, slowly, one after the other. And what all the 3 moves are pushing against is all these fears I talked about before. This all goes slowly, gently against these fears of criticism. And these moves, they have to be small, because else the fear's like, yeah, we're not doing that, too big. Just nope. So small things, small changes. And bringing back these mental tools I just mentioned before, this really primarily develops one of them. Because acting is all about the team's actions, obviously. You do stuff in plain view in front of everyone, and people start copying things around you. And speaking is all about the feelings of the team. So what feels safe to bring into the room, and picture is all about the thoughts. How do you see yourself? And these tools, how to do these moves. So let's have a few little examples. So acting in plain view. So do what you want to, do the behavior you want to see in plain view. And just a random example, because 6 months ago, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to see what it's like to work with Claude Code, and I have started a new project. Okay, you do it. I just started playing, and everyone knew that in the team. And honestly, it was a bit of a journey, and it kind of works, and it doesn't, but I just wanted to try it out for myself. But I'm not going to hide that, because I want everyone to just play around with it, see if what works for you. And I'm, of course, not talking about building the models themselves, the LLMs, but just using it for you every day, for whatever you're working on every day. And I like it now. And a lot of people are now exploring it, especially for the stuff like, oh, I got this data and I need to write a report, and I know nobody's going to read it. There you go, Claude. Can you give me a quick first draft? It's just all that kind of things. I know there's loads of opinions about this, but I'm still kind of playing around, figuring out what works. And especially when I have to figure out an API for a tool, it's like, I don't really want to do this because it's just sitting there, trial error. You go, Claude, you do that for me. And it's just nice for that kind of stuff. That's a whole other conversation though. It's just fun, I think. But everyone else around me is kind of, oh, I like that. Can we just maybe meet once a week to also, because I have to write all these reports and do all these combinations. And these are not all technical people. And yeah, I want to do that too. So that's kind of an example of where you wish someone else, you be the example that you want other people to do the same thing. This is a tough one. How do you speak the unspoken? And let's say in a planning meeting, next phase of a project, and maybe you've seen this before, everyone just sitting there pretending everything is great, the model is perfect, it does exactly what we say. Timeline is there, stakeholders are aligned. Everyone's just moving forward as if the model is doing what the team said it would. That's an important one. But honestly, there's a few people on the team like, nah, not sure. Signals I'm seeing, not really sure. Just I haven't ever had a meeting about it. So don't just barge in and say, well, yeah, that's all wrong, we shouldn't do it like that. Just be gentle and say something like, I want to ask something. We're planning the next phase as if the model is doing what it said it would. I'm really not that sure. can we look at the actual outcomes against the predictions? It's just, someone else might say, yeah, I'm worried about that too. And then, yes, yeah, let's have a look. And then it's all that. Instead of just pretending everything is okay, you actually have a discussion about it. Something that happens, like the unsayable, like, yeah, we just pretend it's okay. And it might just well be, but be open about it. And the rule against saying X turns out to be just one person's discomfort. And that scales up to everyone else's politeness. But once something has been said once, nothing bad happens, the rules change. And not just for that topic, but just generally the whole way people talk together is different. So the rule really survives until somebody breaks it once. I have to go a bit quick now, I'm way too slow here. So the picture is this all about how do you describe your team? And I'm going to basically summarize this one in two sentences. Just don't use negative words. Use positive words. Don't compare yourself all the time, like, oh, we're not like the other team. Just say, no, we do this, we catch these things. And the last thing I really have to say is you need a destination. Because how many times have you been in a project where it just says, well, you just have to make it look better or improve the platform? Wrong. Have a goal, have an outcome, have a date, have a definite plan. And honestly, then you're not going to these meetings anymore because you know we're focused, we have a mission, we're building this. And I think this is just such an important tool that you actually need to know what you're building as a team. And I've so many times had that, like, yeah, just make it a bit better, or something like that. Do that too. And just the thing I wanted to mention, think about this, like how does everyone in your team, how do you work around AI? Are you all working together? Are you just hiding that you're using it? Do you do it together? And I'm not talking about the LLM building of the models. Like in all the other talks, I'm just talking about the smaller bits. Are you amplifying each other? Are you going against each other? So apply these things. Picture the thoughts, speak the feelings, and do the actions, and do it all in small, small steps. Thank you, because it's all your collective behaviour. Thank you.
We have time maybe for one quick question, and then yes.
I was wondering, from a leadership perspective, do you have any suggestions for how leaders can facilitate this kind of culture in their teams?
I think
I was just going to say, from a leadership perspective, do you have any suggestions of how leaders might be able to facilitate these kinds of moves within their teams?
I think this is a simple one. You have to behave. You do the doing, and talk the talk. Be the example yourself. Be open, and whatever you think the culture needs to be, you need to show them. That's
If you have other questions, Margaretha will be around, and yeah, stay tuned for the next topic.